Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast, where we explore cutting edge strategies to keep teams human centered, drive innovation, and empower you with the tools and insights needed to help your team excel and thrive in today's rapidly changing world. Your host is Dane, a seasoned expert with over 20 years of experience enhancing team dynamics and innovation. Today, we're delighted to have Jonathan Floyd join us. As the founder and CEO of Box of Care, Jonathan has channeled his love for New Orleans into a business that celebrates the city's rich culture and champions the art of thoughtful giving. By uplifting local artisans and makers, Jonathan's approach to gift curation transforms each Box of Care into a meaningful connection between the giver and the receiver. Throughout the episode, Dane and Jonathan will explore what thoughtful giving means and its impact on Jonathan's business. Additionally, they'll delve into how Jonathan's business is driven by 5 core values and how those principles not only shape his business strategy, but also guide which opportunities he chooses to pursue. Listeners will gain actionable insights on how these values empower Jonathan to foster economic development and community engagement. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a business enthusiast, or simply a fan of New Orleans, you'll find inspiration in Jonathan's story and learn more about the power of aligning business with personal values. So, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're here to inspire your next collaborative breakthrough. Gather your team or put on your headphones, and let's dive in together.
Welcome to the Future of Teamwork podcast. My name's Dane, CEO of the Huddle 3 Group. And today I'm joined by a friend and past colleague, Jonathan Floyd. Jonathan's down in New Orleans. He's the founder and owner of Box of Care gift company. And it's going to be fun talking about his journey to this point and the way that he's supercharging the ecosystem of small businesses around this theme of thoughtful gifting. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Dane, for having me. I appreciate it. Good to catch up.
It is. It's wild. It does feel like yesterday, and at the same time, it's like, man, we got older kids and so many more things going on these days.
I think when I met you, I didn't have kids.
That's right.
So it wasn't even a thing for me, and here I am now.
Well, it is. It's great. It's fantastic, and I've loved following your story. You're doing amazingly impactful work. And it's been a courageous journey that you've gone on in starting your own business. So maybe for the benefit of our listeners, you can share a little bit more about who you are and how you've come to be doing this great work.
Yeah. So I am a native of Kenner, Louisiana, which is right near New Orleans. So if you fly in, that's actually where the airport is. Born and raised in the area. Went to LSU for college. Had a dream of being a sportscaster. I love to tell this story because I played basketball. My entire life in high school was a part of a state championship team, but I'm only 5'10". So that realization came to me as time went on when I went to college. So the thought in college was doing the next best thing, which was sportscasting. So I went through college and worked for the school news station at one point and that sort of thing, but actually finished in communications. And after finishing school, moved home, actually worked in the tourism industry for a hotel locally. And then I had a friend of mine when I thought about moving to Houston who said, "Hey, I work for this company, NES Global. Why don't you come work with us?" And that was my introduction into the recruitment world. And my life has been, to be honest with you, changed ever since that job. When I was at NES, and I don't know if I want to, tell the whole NES story, but when I was at NES, I started off in quality assurance and eventually got the opportunity to recruit. But I still talk about it to this day, how that job transformed my selling, my marketing, my networking abilities, all the sorts of things that I built up over time up until now that has really shaped things for me. Worked at NES up until 2015, left there, got married, worked for another company that's down here, Auctioneer Health System, was in recruitment in the allied health space, did all sorts of different things for Auctioneer, and then eventually left there and worked for Entergy, which is one of the Fortune 500 companies down here in New Orleans. And there, again, just a lot of recruitment work, touched all sorts of sectors of the business, and eventually got into workforce development work, which was really rewarding for me, something that I really enjoyed, going out to work with minority communities and preparing folks to get jobs with Entergy or wherever else they were. Did that up until 2021 and then left there and went to Amazon still working in recruitment, um, and worked there up until the end of 2022. Now, if I step back for a second, in 2016, I had the idea after having a conversation with my wife, who's from Chicago. We were on the internet one night and we were like, or she had the thought of getting something from Chicago. So we're looking online and we found a company. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You could actually, and that's not a crazy idea, but that's cool. You could get stuff from Chicago. And for me, I had been a few times and I just love the culture because it's so similar to New Orleans. So I thought about, well, is somebody doing that in New Orleans? Didn't really see it how I would want to do it. There were a couple gift basket companies, but nothing in the way I wanted to do it, which was showcasing minority-owned businesses. And also, I mean, New Orleans is a flavorful city, a lot of culture. Using the actual gift box itself to be a vehicle that kind of drives the culture and tells the story as well. So
Mm.
that was in late 2016. I actually launched Box of Care in 2017, the day after Mother's Day, and worked it as a side thing for 2.5 years. Just at night, go home and just working on products, any opportunities I could get, trying to set meetings when I could. I would do those particular things. Fast forward up until 2020. I don't know if you heard about COVID-19. I don't know if that was a thing where you were, but I always tell this story. In 2020, I was actually on the road for work, had to come home. Life was paused, and I told my wife, I want to say in either March or April, I'll give this 6 months because nobody can travel to New Orleans. Nobody's going to really buy gifts. And my life was changed during that time. Folks
Mm.
couldn't come here and actually wanted to experience New Orleans. At the end of that year, I got the opportunity to do my first gifting for the Sugar Bowl, which is the annual bowl game
Yeah.
here in New Orleans. And since then, over the next couple years, I mean, I was just working the business as much as possible. Obviously, not being on the road, I had a lot more free time to work on the business. With that being said, up until 2022, I had an opportunity. I'd say I made an opportunity to find a way to part from my day job. I had been kind of thinking about it, and actually left my day job right before I would have gotten laid off. So the timing was, you know, impeccable, I guess, if you
Yeah.
will. Ended up leaving my day job to do this full time, and since then, since the end of 2022, have been doing this on a full time basis. Typically in a solo style where it's me kind of doing everything, but also have friends and family and other folks who help me accomplish my goals, and then also from a team standpoint, working with other small businesses. Overall, Box of Care is I like to say a marketing company, but basically we take things that people know and love about New Orleans, combine that with products that people don't know that are amazing in New Orleans, and put those in together for gift boxes that are sold on Amazon, gift boxes that are sold on our website, and then also working with events and conferences and conventions and anybody who wants to experience New Orleans wherever they are in the world.
It's so powerful, Jonathan, and it's all the more powerful for the way that you've come upon it and intentionally built the company. I want to dive into some of those kind of intentional staples in a minute, but just that introduction, I hear these kind of threads and themes, and you talk about number one, the opportunity to get a job in the recruiting industry, empowering you by giving you selling, marketing, networking skills, and I think that's something that the youth of today are possibly getting or missing out on, particularly as we go more digital, just like the human connection of selling, marketing, and networking.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I've learned up until even this last year how important the relationship building piece is in business and in life. And when I was working at NES in particular, um, I'd have opportunities or little nuggets that be left behind by some of the recruiters that I worked with, who I kind of looked up to as a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, who would teach me things about the relationship building piece. But actually going out with them to meet with contractors, meet with companies, and seeing them work and seeing how they deliver value to folks. It's those sort of things that really helped shape what I do now. Everybody essentially was their own business,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense, right? So folks had their own sectors and remits that they worked, but everybody was their own person. And as you step out to do something on your own, it's a little unnerving at the beginning when you're talking about a business that doesn't exist. There's no cachet. There's no name behind it. But learning to step into your own, represent yourself, and then again provide value, build those relationships is so important. And I know in those few years I was there, um, I got those skills. Now, to your point about students today, when I worked at Entergy, especially in that workforce development role, and I'd go out and speak to students. I mean, I preach that stuff. The resume is great. The GPAs are great, classes and assignments are great, but the soft skills are what's going to make you something that people don't want to let go or will consider a little bit longer. Now, don't get me wrong, you need ability, you need skills, but that stuff can be taught. And companies are going to know at 23 years old, you're not going to have everything you need. If they're hiring you as a new grad, there's no thought that you're going to come in there day one with the ability, but they want to know that you want to learn, you're open to coaching, you can focus, you can multitask, and those sorts of things. And I saw that again early in my career, which has been invaluable.
Yeah. And I like that example in workforce development because you're right. Those human connection skills, not only do they help you push a product, they help you pull in learning through curiosity, through others. You even mentioned before the show talking about knowledge transfer when you're working with large workforces. You've got sort of exiting experienced workforce and entering inexperienced workforce. And it's that curiosity and human connection that pops.
Yes, yeah, and that's again the teachable piece.
Yeah.
So, but then there's also the work with the older generation and helping them to um, essentially put together the information that it could be received. But being able to be coachable, teachable is so important.
Yeah, that's neat. And then the second theme I was going to raise was workforce development because, as we'll go into in a minute, the way you've built Box of Care is in driving a bit of an economic development theme, and it's pretty rewarding. It's very important work for people to be out there working with our youth coming into the workforce and small business owners to drive economic development, particularly in communities that potentially have not traditionally had the resources or attention. Um,
I yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Dane. I'm sorry.
no, you go, you go.
I got so excited. Yeah, I mean, um, I can remember starting this business trying to identify, um, those minority businesses, those woman-owned businesses. Thinking to myself, even from the beginning of the business, yes, people know, this goes for every city, but particularly New Orleans. If you ask people to write down the places they know about, if you ask 10 people from around the country, you'll get a lot of the same answers. Though, as a local, there's things that I would say and I know that nobody outside of the city would mention. So for me, it was important, even at the beginning, having those principles and sticking to them, and then being able to educate those folks who are from outside of the city and say, listen, I know you're not from here, but there's a particular company that makes something. When I do proposals, I provide an explanation about the organizations that are in there, just so people get an idea. When people actually buy a gift as well, I have a QR code where people can access a digital guide to learn about who's in there. So I like to say bridging or building that bridge between the creators and makers of the city and those outside. But that's so important. But again, small businesses in New Orleans really make up that culture, that thing that people love about New Orleans, and it's important for me to be able to give them that opportunity to showcase
Yeah. And that was actually the third stream. It's like we planned this, Jonathan. The,
them.
the third stream
I'm kind of jumping through. Sorry.
no, you're doing great. But the third stream was like the way you built a platform to help tell the story of others. And storytelling's such a critical uh, element of this modern era right now. I mean, it's been part of humanity for tens of thousands of years, but right now we need it to share. And obviously you said in COVID, people didn't have that opportunity to experience or those different stories. They were stuck and you were able to kind of supercharge that.
Yeah, and that's been honestly the most difficult part has been the storytelling. So I've worked with the Convention and Visitors Bureau here, and when I meet with the team, and they have an amazing team, and when I meet with the team there, for me it's always the same thing. How can I continue to get the story out? Um, because again, like a story, it is an ever changing thing. There's new businesses popping up. Sadly, there's businesses going away
Hmm.
in New
Hmm.
Orleans and around the country. So trying to keep people as connected to that as possible in a coherent way, with the education, the entertainment of it, all of those things, trying to balance that. It's a challenge. I think I do a decent job of it, but I'm still trying to figure out how do I best tell those stories. And I think a lot of that work comes in actually having those conversations with my vendors to get their story. And they say, "Hey, look, this is what's important to me. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Here's a little bit of background on what I'm doing to better help me go out and be able to convey that to my clients or buyers or whoever else is interested in buying something."
I think it's fantastic the way you've built that platform. And you used a word that said, I made an opportunity to go and do this, which I like because I think that's powerful. It's courageous. It's it's when great entrepreneurs find that problem to solve that they're going to go and make that opportunity. And before the show, you mentioned these five staples. So you're being very intentional about it. You said that you sort of went full time in and realized early on you had to build a little bit more intentionality about how you grew the business and your network. So maybe you could, step us through each of those five staples and give us the why behind each of those.
Yeah, yeah. So this was years ago when I started Box Care. I guess because I'd been in the corporate environment so long, you see businesses who have those staples or tenets or whatever. But the thing is, you recite those at places, they become commonplace, and that stuff really helps shape the business. So it is very important. But when I sat down, the first thing I thought of was providing a platform. So um, it's important again giving businesses an opportunity to be seen. Nothing makes me happier than when I have a vendor of mine who was a part of something, have a customer circle back to them individually to say
Hmm.
how much they enjoyed their product. That means everything. So knowing that I'm able to get into doors, get into opportunities through giving others an opportunity to be seen is incredibly important. That's the first thing.
Great.
The second thing is creating quality gifts. So going to find, when I find those vendors, those who make great products. And again, a place like New Orleans, heavy tourism, there's some stuff that I don't think is a true representation of New Orleans.
Hmm.
It's just this commoditized or stuff that you can just find any old place. And some of those brands are the popular brands, but there's some other things that I'm like, I don't know if that would really convey the type of New Orleans that I would want to show to my people. So it's important to me that the products are quality in terms of the freshness, all elements of that, which ties into the third staple of properly representing New Orleans and its people. So again, as somebody who's getting the opportunity to go and to be honest, I actually went to a meeting this morning for supplier diversity for the Super Bowl. So that's going to be in New
Wow.
Orleans next year. So they've taken applications from folks all around the city, narrowed that pool down, and then we're going to go through the application process and narrow that pool down even more. And knowing that if I put together or got the opportunity to do this, to properly represent New Orleans and its people is so incredibly important to me. Just because New Orleans being on the world stage for the Super Bowl is so important. And to be honest, the reputation that New Orleans gets at times for things that being a local, I know to be true or untrue about the city is it's very important that I do my part the best I can as one person to
Yeah.
help drive that forward. The fourth staple is supporting minority and woman-owned businesses, which is completely baked into what I do. And the thought around that is going into the side streets of New Orleans and finding those businesses. Maybe it's a husband and wife, maybe it's a mother daughter, father son, whatever sort of business. That's maybe one or two people, and especially for minority owned businesses who are looking for any sort of opportunities to be a part of something to where they get their seasoning out or their sauces or their whatever the case is. That again
Yeah.
may be popular in the city is incredibly important. So I make it a point on myself. I don't leave it to chance. So when I'm putting a proposal together, or I get a request for an event coming to New Orleans, it's something that I'm already going to do. I will say you get a lot of businesses nowadays who are interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
who have those sorts of questions, which kind of ties into my last point of being eco-friendly. They want to know what sort of things are you doing. Um, I use recyclable material boxes. Um, I work with other vendors who may use canvas, who use things that could be used 2 or 3 times, that could be reused. So it's important
Yeah.
um, to have that element tied to it as well, because there are businesses, again, from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, that have goals that they want to hit. And yes, coming to me, working with a minority vendor may be a part of them, but um, they want to go to the next layer or the next layer to know that this is something that they can be proud of, and ultimately that I will be proud of as well.
That's neat. So 5 staples: platform for others, quality gifts, properly representing New Orleans and its people, supporting minority and women-owned businesses, and then being eco-friendly.
Yes.
They're powerful. And you shared something with me before the show, which I really like too. You said that's your framework for how you do business, how you
Mhm.
choose partners, how you choose projects to support, and that's got to be um, just got to drive a lot of clarity and confidence for you, I'd imagine.
It does, and I'm not going to go soapbox here, but we kind of live in a time where on social media, businesses will say or do certain things. You just see a lot of questionable practices from business. And I'm not necessarily talking politically. I'm just,
Yeah.
people will say or do things. So for me, I personally don't want my business to be tied to anything that may diminish or put down somebody's lights or opportunity or whatever the case is. So it's important that the folks I work with align with the things that I align with.
Hmm.
Because especially as a small business, there may be a time where you feel the need to have to um, compromise. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
You feel like you want to compromise, and I don't really want to do that. So if that means less money, is less opportunity, then so be it. But I really want to try to stay true to those things as much as possible. And again, like we talked before, when it comes to picking vendors, when it comes to picking events and opportunities, they must align with those things in one way or form. So if it's
Yeah.
two of them, three of them, four of them, whatever the case is, then I know, okay, that's an opportunity that I should take.
Yeah. And we had a guest, Gary Ridge, on the show last year. He was the CEO of WD-40, and
Wow. Okay.
great story. And he does exactly what, or he was doing exactly what you do, which is codifying values and behaviors through the organization. So it helps you protect the product, protect the customers. And it's so critical because we do see a lot of teams where the values are just something that's on the wall and it doesn't translate to how you do the work. And in the nature of business that you're in, you're by nature of being a platform, by nature of shining a light on others, um, you're taking a lot of responsibility to build these teams of teams. So that's got to be powerful and exciting for them as either customers or vendors to be aligning with you around.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think for me, I set the tone on that, because ultimately, if I'm working with your organization and you come to New Orleans and you want X amount of gifts on a particular time, date, whatever the case is, you're working with me. You want what you want when you said you wanted it. And I told you I'm going to deliver at that particular time. Now, whatever it takes me to do that, not necessarily your business. It's just I told you I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
So, I set the tone with my vendors in terms of time frames and how I work, and it's about being professional and under promising and over delivering. And even from a client standpoint, I actually have somebody coming in March who wanted to do. They're doing a few hundred gifts,
yeah,
and they were kind of dragging their feet. And I said, "Listen, I put together amazing gifts, and I told you I need at least a month. I really need you to let's get this going." And we were able to kind of close everything, and now the process has been started. But it's just kind of that working on both sides for me, to make sure that I'm doing what I say I'm going to do, and using my platform correctly. The last thing I want to do is have any sort of issues from a vendor standpoint or a client standpoint. I mean, my
yeah,
reputation's it's everything to me, and
yeah,
as a small business, it really, I mean, it could be life or death for
yeah,
your business. It really can
yeah.
be.
I like what I'm hearing there too, Jonathan, because you're basically explaining, as I hear it, that by deploying your 5 staples, by being an advocate and a champion of small businesses representing New Orleans, you're setting standards for the customer market so that they can't just rush something last minute and buy something cheap and not eco-friendly and not representative. And that's something that small businesses don't often have the benefit of or the luxury of. They don't have someone who's advocating for their time and energy. So that's powerful, I think, for any listeners out there that are doing business in local economic development, workforce development, just creating space, time, and energy for people to come in and be able to participate and do their best work is
Yeah,
something that I think we've lost, sadly, through a lot of the digital kind of fast, convenient age that we're living through right now.
I agree. It's to be honest, it's taken me time to get to this point where I feel like I can have those tough conversations and sort of set that standard. But um, I've had some really good opportunities and done some work with some amazing organizations. So from a confidence standpoint, I know I can do what I say I'm going to do. But again, it's about me kind of setting those rules and having my sandbox and getting people to understand that, and then being upfront about what those expectations are. Again, from a client standpoint, knowing how the delivery and logistics works, knowing how um, the communication piece will work of that. And then
Hmm.
also in New Orleans, working with vendors, knowing how their process works, and then getting all of those things to align, which can be a lot at times, but that's a part of what I'm doing. That I've chosen to take that on. So I'm all about accountability. So that's what Box of Care does.
No, that's neat. And in that outline of the staples you mentioned, there was a phrase there you said, um, "What's true and what's not true about New Orleans." So, you know, where is an example of where you're able to maybe combat some of the untrue statements and beliefs about New Orleans through working with these vendors and putting together these gifts in the way that you do?
Yeah, it's funny. I've become a quasi ambassador. When I have organizations who are coming to New Orleans, people will have questions. And as somebody who is a local, I am honest. So there's things that I won't do at certain times in certain places in New Orleans.
Yeah,
So I try to be as forthcoming about that, especially if folks are here for 4 or 5 days. You're here for a conference, but you also want to enjoy the city. And the city is to be enjoyed, but it's also about being smart. And I don't think that's just synonymous to New Orleans. I've
hmm,
lived in Houston. I've been to San Diego, which is one of my favorite places in the world. I've been to Chicago, which I love dearly. I've been to all these other places, and everybody has their own thing. I'm in New Orleans more often and have much more insight. So I really try to be an advocate for the city and have conversations and let people know that you can have a good time here, but it's also important to be smart and just aware of your surroundings and that sort of
yeah. No, that's a good example. So you get to win the ambassador opportunity just by building relationships with these customers who are buying these gifts through your platform.
I do. I do.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and people have questions. I mean, they want to know, and a lot of times they'll work with a meeting planner, and they have some sort of contact
yeah,
within the city. But a lot of times, I will get asked about particular things where I got certain things. Maybe they want to visit that store. Maybe they want to visit a particular restaurant, and I'll be able to kind of jump in and help, which I thoroughly enjoy that work to be
yeah,
able to have those conversations with people. I do. People will ask about certain restaurants and that's kind of the way it works. So if I was traveling somewhere else, if I was coming to California and I know it was where you were, or we were going to Australia,
yeah,
you would be the first person I got. Dane, hey, tell me where to go, tell me what to do, and I would, trust and respect whatever it is you told me, and try to position myself like that for New Orleans.
I like that. And so you're using this word thoughtful gifting, just switching gears for a minute, which I
Sure.
really liked when I see it on your materials, because often, actually, I'm put my hand up. My wife, if ever she's angry at me for a gifting episode, it's because it wasn't thoughtful. It's because you ran out the day before my birthday and grabbed something that caught your eye.
That's common. That's common.
Yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, when I thought about it, as I start to talk more about thoughtful gifting, um, we don't often receive things unprovoked. I mean, just from a personal standpoint, from a professional standpoint. And as I talk to business owners who have clients, as I just talk to people in general, there's such a gap there. There's such a gap. And as a business, we're grateful for our clients, but how do we tell them that? Well, we spend
Yeah.
money with them. Okay, we spend money with them, but how do we tell them that? Everybody would have money to spend with them. That doesn't really set you apart. So trying to reframe thinking about how do we show appreciation? And it doesn't have to necessarily be about quantity or dollars, but the quality of it. How
Yeah.
personal can you get with it? How customizing, how to create an experience, how to do that. And when that stuff's done, again, I'm just going to stick with the word unprovoked. People are surprised by that, man. The distance that stuff goes. Um, if you're working with an organization, there's folks when I have conversations who remember something they received 4, 5, or 6 years ago from somebody. That's a small gift that they still have that's got their name on it. And it for whatever reason doesn't seem to happen. You've mentioned the digital element of how we live now. And that's just, as close as we are now, or able to get to each other, we're that much further away from even thinking about showcasing, hey, I was thinking about you. Well,
Yeah.
now actually it's like, you're scrolling Facebook and it's just from person to person to person, and we just kind of move on. So, and there's such an opportunity there. And I'm not trying to sell my business or services, but just to do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And my wife could say, I'm a giver. The thought of this business in general stemmed with me being somebody that has given people things. I send king cakes to people in my family that don't ask. I mean,
Yeah.
people's birthdays, and that's what I care about that stuff. And I know people in my life know that about me, and I see their responses, and that stuff is means everything to me, and I know it means a ton to them as well.
Yeah. And it's powerful. I also saw that in one of your posts. It's powerful to think of the context for giving, particularly in today's workplaces. There's giving to employees, which we're
Mhm.
seeing is kind of going through fads and fashions right now, from pizza parties to massages to financial wellness training,
That's true.
you name
Yeah,
it, right?
that's
So
true.
so really thoughtful gifting to employees is a real space. Do you see that shaping a good portion of your business overall versus, other forms of gifting for events and otherwise?
So, yes, I'm starting to focus in that B2B space, because again, having conversations last year with business owners, I saw there was a need, and I could say it now, but I'm actually rolling out a gifting service called Evergift. I'm going live with it Friday, and it's going to be a B2B service for businesses who want to essentially set it and forget it. I handle gifting
Nice.
for them a few times a year, handwritten notes. Um, but it's not just going to be a thing where we slap their logo and send it off. There's going to be a little bit of legwork at the front where the businesses tell me about their people. We try to identify some things that are unique about that particular client and really try to pull in those heartstrings. Obviously, there's the element of giving there, the element of supplies, and then also the element of building your business. So there's the
Yeah.
opportunity to set yourself apart from a B2B standpoint. The employee thing is a little bit different, um, because I would have to lean on the business to tell me, because they'd have to really know their employees, right? So
Yeah.
some people do just want money.
Yeah.
Some people, I was fine with a good meal and a glass of wine, but it just depends. Some people have kids and they don't want alcohol. Somebody may have other circumstances, but um, the little bit of legwork on the front of knowing who you're gifting, whether it's B2B or business to employee or a friend to friend or whoever,
Yeah.
and then pursuing that, not what you like, not what I like these. I thought you would too. I'm an Astros fan. You don't like the Astros, but I'm still sending you something I think you like. But really honing into that particular person, and the distance that could go in building a relationship. Again, there's no amount of revenue or anything that can quantify that.
Yeah. And I'm hearing this Evergift concept sounds really cool, because I'm hearing more and more that we're needing to do almost journey mapping. So whether it's an employee or a customer, as you go through these milestones, we want to celebrate those milestones with something very thoughtful. And that's really important. At the same time, a lot of businesses and salespeople and line leaders are very busy. So actually having a partner that helps kind
Mhm.
of stage that platform, it is pretty cool.
Yes. And again, the ROI on something like that is, building social capital and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
It really goes a long way. But again, you don't see a lot of people do it. But I think
no,
even more importantly, you don't see a lot of people think about it. So now I'm
yeah,
trying to, there's some change management within that where I'm actually trying to get people to even think about that. And I've been having those conversations locally with businesses who it kind of sets the light off. Yep, no, we do have a lot of clients. Do you send do you send them anything? No, we don't send them anything. No, we don't do anything throughout the year.
yeah.
Um, but now here's an opportunity to do that.
That's very cool. Circling back to your five staples and working with, local minority owned, woman owned businesses, are there any just like heartwarming stories that just jump off the page to you where you've started working with a vendor and you've helped put them into some different customer environments? And like you said earlier, people are now starting to value what they're doing and help them scale. How do you see some of those kind of ecosystem effects playing out with your suppliers?
Yeah, I mean, to pin it to one person would be hard. I would say this. I've had a client before ask for a box or a gift that's just minority and woman owned businesses, and I was
Yeah,
able to do that quickly. There's a particular candle company I work with, and I think I referenced it earlier, but they were a part of a gift I put together, and they actually had somebody circle back and buy from them.
yeah,
And that sort of thing is that's what this is all about. Especially again for the minority owned businesses who maybe don't have access to capital. I was a part of a panel recently, and the day before I had read something about minority owned businesses getting less than 1% of formal funding. So we're
yeah.
talking through VCs or whatever case. And so if you're not going to get money from a bank, if you're not going to get money from this or get these sort of opportunities, where can you do that? And I grind and work really hard to um, even have a sliver of opportunity in the tourism space. So within that, I'm dragging everybody or as many folks as I can behind me, um, because I want to ultimately create that New Orleans experience that is as authentic as possible. And it includes those businesses. It includes yes, Cafe Du Monde is great. Yes, some of these other organizations are great, but and it's not just the New Orleans thing. This is all around the country. But I'm trying to get as many people as I can, and I can't do it for everybody.
No,
There's folks who give me products or things that aren't a good fit, but I still keep them in my repertoire. And when there's an opportunity, I look to do it. But but yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, it's so important, and it's not about an initiative. It's not really about checking off that box for me to say,
it's
okay,
organic.
it's organic.
Yeah,
It's organic, and the most important thing for me is knowing that the folks who receive this love it and learn that story. And I keep
yeah,
going back to that, but they love these products. And you didn't ask, but one thing I always reference when it comes to, like I said, I created a digital guide. I'd have folks who would receive gifts. They'd come down to New Orleans, get a gift, travel back to Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Diego, and not know what to do with the stuff. And that was something that it took me years to realize that up until 2022, 2023, when I was like, wait a minute, there's an opportunity there to do that storytelling. So that was kind of the thing for me to say, by the way, if you love this, then an organization, Jambalaya Girl, which is a woman-owned jambalaya company down here,
yeah.
here's her story. Not just her story, here's her cooking the jambalaya. So now we've created a family thing, or if you like to cook, there's just so much more wrapped into it than you just actually receiving a gift. It's bigger than a gift.
That's neat. And experience is hard to box, right? But if you can tie it to a story and then a video of cooking, now whether you're in Pittsburgh or Sydney, Australia, you're becoming more immersed in that New Orleans experience and that individual's business and craft too.
Absolutely. And pricing and experience is I was just in New York with my family, and we went and did something called Rise New York, which was right next to our hotel on I think 43rd Street. And you got to walk through like a museum and all sorts of things. And I don't know, maybe it was 50, 60, $70 a person, but my
Yeah,
kids loved it.
yeah,
And it was just like, man, this is you provided an experience. That's better than us sitting down and having a meal. We went to some plays on Broadway, which they like that too. But the Rise New York thing where they got to get on the ride and there was a simulator and we got to pretend we were hang gliding through the city. Man, they
Nice.
love that stuff. And that experience, that connecting the people to New York, flying over Yankee Stadium and stuff. It's just, I mean, that's the stuff people remember.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. As a small business owner, how does technology play a role in allowing you to scale yourself and the offering? Are you building your own software? Are you tooling up from other providers to do these QR codes and guides to products? How do you tackle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Automation has been a big part of my business. I actually had been working with a business coach up until the end of last year, and he preached the automation piece. That has really helped for me as a small business stay in contact with people, but also be able to attract new folks to um, engage in terms of wanting to connect with me to get gifts or um, again, just trying to be as many places as I can without having to physically be there. So no, I don't have my own software, but I have a list of things that I use. And if you go through the website and sign up, you'll start to receive emails. And if you buy something, you'll start to receive emails.
Neat.
And then once I have you in the community, at that point, I'm providing information about what I'm doing. I'm telling you stories, what's going on in New Orleans, just because most of my buyers don't live in New Orleans. So the people, if you look at the history of Boxicare and the buyer percentage, more than 80% is not here.
Mm.
Now some lived here, but from time to time, I'll get a local who will buy it and send it off. But most of my buyers are not here, which is why Amazon has become such a big part of what I'm doing as well to connect to those outside folks. But tech
Yeah,
has really saved me a lot of time and effort because when I first started it, I was trying to do everything, and to put just even some systems in place has gone a really long way.
neat. No, that's really helpful. Uh, and I guess one of my final sort of areas of intrigue or curiosity is around where this is going to go in the future. Like, if you look at how you're building the Box of Care business, how you're teaming up with all of these great small local businesses, um, I'd love to kind of get a read on what you think success looks like in the future for you and for this community of vendors that you're building a platform for.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Also, I think the ultimate goal would be doing this in every major city,
Cool.
duplicating this effort. Now, when I have that conversation with people from New Orleans, I get scoffed at because they say nobody's like New Orleans, nobody's got the culture. But I would challenge that a little bit. I lived in Houston, and Houston's it's different because the folks who live there, a lot of them are not from there in
Yeah.
certain parts of the city. New Orleans, everybody's from here.
Yeah.
Everybody's been here, so there is that element. But every city has their own culture. Every city has things that are special about their city. I like to say everybody is from somewhere, so everybody will miss certain things or wants to try certain things. Visited one time and wants to do or see certain things. So the next place I would go would be Houston. Chicago's another place I would
Yeah.
go. Going out west to LA was another place I'd want to go. The Northeast, New York is another place I'd want to go. That was actually when I started this business, mapped that out within like the first week of the other places I'd want to do this. But perfecting the model here and then going other places is what I'd want to do from that standpoint. And then obviously the B2B gifting service is another thing I'd want to grow, and that could go anywhere. And again, Houston would be another place to do something like that, but that could be a national play as well.
Yeah. They're great. They're great aspirations, and just think of the impact that it would have, not only for bringing joy to the people who get the gifts, but to those local businesses that get to interact with you in those five staples where you're, advocating for them.
Absolutely, yeah,
It's
and,
very
and I
cool.
feel like that's missing. I feel like that's people are really missing that thing nowadays.
Yeah, they are. I mean, one of the big reasons we started this show, Jonathan, was that we have a huge belief here in agency of small teams and the power of small teams. So I always love it when I get to speak to an entrepreneur like you who's really out there championing that movement. Um,
Absolutely.
And if I look back over like summary of some of the points, I love the way you started with your story on developing soft skills through an early, job in the recruiting space, the importance of economic development and getting to work in and around communities, telling the story of others, and really that centerpiece of your five staples and how those values and behaviors shape your whole offering, your whole existence in the ecosystem. I think they're fantastic skills, processes, methods for anyone out there who's trying to make an impact through their local community.
Absolutely.
So that was great, and a big call out as well to the funding gap. Not many people think about it because there's always talk about so much money on the sidelines, so much VC and PE investment. I know it's come down since the interest rates, but even at a basic level of like banking relationships, small businesses are hard to fund, and so working with entrepreneurs like yourself, like Box of Care, to support small businesses is a powerful call out to any of our listeners.
Absolutely. If I could add one point to that,
Yeah,
even more important than the financing piece would be the knowledge piece as well. I think as minority-owned businesses, the access to knowledge could be even more impactful than the money itself. So that was one thing I had to do was identify resources, organizations locally, the chamber, and I'm trying to have those conversations with other minority-owned businesses and say, "Hey, listen, yes, I know you don't, nobody's going to give you $250,000, but if you come to these particular events, they're teaching about preparing yourself for funding. They're teaching you about
yeah,
a balance sheet and a P&L statement and the stuff that really, really, really is important in business that could help you grow marginally, small, whatever the case is, but help you be in business for a long time. Opportunities for cohorts.
yep,
I just was given the opportunity to be a part of a cohort done by Shell. So I'm going to do
nice.
that. Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business. There's all sorts of things, but I think a lot of minority business owners aren't looking for that. So like really trying to give people exposure to that knowledge is almost more important than giving folks money.
That's brilliant. And I'll actually work with Alicia when we produce this show to put some of those sound bites and even some of those links because
Great.
they're fantastic resources and they're out there in every city too.
There are, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Jonathan, it's been great reconnecting. So exciting to hear your story, and thank you for sharing all of this great impact you're having through the teams you're working with.
No problem. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Was good catching up. It was really really good. And when I do go to Australia, you will be the first person I call before I
Yeah, definitely. I'll hit you up. All
Absolutely.
right, thanks, Jonathan. Oh,
Thank you, Dave.
I can't forget the most important part. If our listeners want to find you or go and get into the Box of Care gift company and share some New Orleans with their loved ones, how do they do that?
Yeah. So website is www.boxofcare.com. So BOXOFCARE.com. On Instagram at Box of Care NOLA. On Facebook, you just search Box of Care. And then also on Amazon as well. So if you
Neat.
wanted to do something at Amazon, they do discounts and all kinds of stuff. When I don't ask them to, they still do it, which I love. But you can search Box of Care New Orleans gifts on Amazon, and there's gifts there as well. And you can do FBA and get it shipped to you within a couple of days, and
Great.
you'll love it. You really will.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Jonathan.
Perfect. Thanks, Dane. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. Remember that by embracing vulnerability, trusting our intuition, and approaching challenges with compassion, we not only strengthen our teams, but also pave the way for a future where collaboration thrives. If you're hungry for more insights, strategies, and research on collaboration, head over to thefutureofteamwork.com. There, you can join our mailing list to stay updated with the latest episodes and get access to exclusive content tailored to make your team thrive. Together, we can build the future of teamwork. Until next time.